Hello everyone, today's what if is, what if Yagami became a half ghoul? Now this is a mix between Tokyo Ghoul and Death Note. And with that out of the way, let's get into this fan favorite video. I just won an ink tank giveaway from YouTube, and of course it was limited edition. I got it on August 7th, and I just want to tell you that I won it. So now let's get on with the video. We begin the what if with Light, who, again, like in the anime, who's bored with what's going on, how criminals are always getting what they want and getting away with things, and how generally the world needs to be better in the future. But meanwhile, he pays attention in class and meets a girl named Rize. He instantly falls in love with her, and he decides to read books with her, made by Sen Takatsuki. And of course, she decides to go on a date with him. He agrees to go with her, and the date starts off really good. And then of course, when the date was about to finish, she kisses Light, but then after that, she hugs him. And surely also after that, she bites him, revealing that Rize Kamishiro was without a doubt a ghoul. You see, ghouls exist in this world, but there are no Shinigamis and there are no Death Notes, which is the whole point of this what if as well. And of course, what happens is that Light gets badly injured, just like Kaneki, and then of course the steel beams crush Rize, and then of course a bunch of doctors found Light Yagami, silly me, and they decided to sympathetically implant Rize's organs into him, although Dr. Kano pretended to be sympathetic, but he knew that he was trying to break the law. And then of course, Light Yagami wakes up with a red and black Kakugan, and of course, the doctor decides to let him go when he fully recovers. And then of course, when Light tries to eat human food, he finds out that it just tastes disgusting. And then when Light looks in the mirror, he sees a red and black Kakugan.
What's happening to me?
Meanwhile, Light Yagami goes outside on a walk. Meanwhile, he also meets Toka, who's being raped by someone. And then of course he loses control and starts eating the person's flesh, who was a criminal, by the way, and Light immediately remorses it when he gains control again. And of course she notices that he was the one that was dating Rize and got her organs, well, transplanted I should say. But of course he runs away because he also finds out that she's a ghoul. He runs into Nishiki, who beats the shit out of him, but then Toka of course saves him. And of course she notices that he refuses to eat human flesh, so she decides to force him to eat human flesh. Of course, Light does not want to eat human flesh, the same reason why Kaneki doesn't. But of course, we do get Toka's good side, and she decides to take him to Onteiku, and of course Onteiku help Light. So they give him some coffee, he enjoys it, and they give him some human flesh. He has to eat it, so he accepts it. But of course, they also tell him that they got it from Mount Fuji, since they get the dead bodies that committed suicide on Onteiku rather than just eating living people. But then when Light gets back home, he thinks about becoming a vigilante, since he's already taken a criminal's life. And yeah, he comes to the realization, like he does in the anime, how the world is rotten and those who are making it rot deserve to die. And of course, Light decides to get a mask from Anime Skrillex and of course become Kira, killing those who are truly evil and protecting those who are innocent from evil by eating the criminals as a ghoul and by Kira. The CCG took notice of this and of course tried to take him out, but of course the CCG decided to let this situation be handled by a detective, and you obviously know that's going to be L. Now, I need to address, in episode 2, L would not have to use the Lindell-Taylor method because Kira isn't killing with heart attacks. So this means that L just assumes that Light is in Japan rather than anywhere else, because that's all the killings have ever been, mostly. But what happens in episode 2 instead of Lindell Taylor is when Light is getting coffee with one of his friends, for example, Shiori from the 2006 Death Note live-action movie, not the Netflix film, but the other one. Nishiki shows up and beats the hell out of Shiori. Light gets upset that Nishiki's doing this to her, and then of course Light almost loses control. Light brings out his Kagune and starts stabbing the shit out of Nishiki, and he almost loses control and almost wanted to kill his girlfriend. Of course, Toka saves him and saves Shiori as well. He wakes up in a bed with blood in his mouth, and of course he learns what happens, and of course he still works at the cafe, and he still tells them that he can't just come to terms that he's a ghoul already, and he can't just give in right now. It takes time for him, and character development. When Light is working part-time on Teiku, he meets a woman named Ryoko and her daughter Hinami. They came here to seek refuge after being separated from their father. Of course, Light decides to comfort the two of them, asking for Yashimura's permission so they can stay over. Of course, he bonds with Hinami when they were reading books, and they get along together perfectly. And of course, Light tells Hinami that she reminds him of Sayu, Light's younger sister. And yes, I've got to talk about the Tsukiyama arc. It still happens the same way it does in the main timeline, but with Light. But Light is more suspicious and decides not to go out with Tsukiyama. But of course, Tsukiyama tricks him into cutting himself and bleeding on his napkin, and of course he still goes full pedophile on him as well.
And then Nishiki tells him his backstory, and he forgives Nichi and redeems him. Nishiki's girlfriend, Kimi, is kidnapped by Tsukiyama, and of course Light and Nishiki try and fight Tsukiyama, and Toka saves the two of them. She fights Light, and then of course she gets the ultimate power that she does in the original anime, beats the hell out of Tsukiyama until she has up learning him. She has that moment with how pretty, that's still accurate. So basically, the Tsukiyama arc happens a little different because Light's a little more suspicious. And now let's get on to the next part of this story.
Now, Ray Penba still suspects Light because he's also sent by the CCG, not just L, who's also... See, there's a Kira task force in the CCG, and of course, they list out their suspects of who Kira could be. Of course, Light gets Ray, but of course, he doesn't use a death note like he does in the anime. Ray just happens to be on a train, and of course Light still blackmails him into emailing a couple agents to be in a specific location, and then he of course knocks out Ray and of course kills him. And of course he does the same thing to all the other ghoul investigators. He trashes their quinkes and then bites their heads off, or maybe just decapitates them, but he gives their bodies to Onanteiku. Now, for episode 6, which is at the end of the first half, and then part 2 is going to be about the second half of season 1, because for this video I'm just going to do the first half of season 1, so let's get this out of the way. So, Modo and Amon eventually find Hinami, and of course they capture Ryoko and then kill her, just the same way it happens in the main timeline, so they can lure out Kira. And of course, Light feels regret that he wasn't able to save her, because he wasn't in his Kira outfit, and he wasn't on parole duty because it wasn't nighttime. And Light sometimes does feel bad for Hinami and what she's been through. And of course, that'll leave us off for this part, because next time we're going to tackle the second half of season 1 now. And as always, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.